Mr. Danielson will be filming us today. So thank you for being here.
You ever seen one of those days?
Thank you. My name is Fadi Jamous. I'm a pulmonologist at Avera.
And so can I just get your first name again, please?
Fadi, F-A-D-Y.
Thank you, Fadi. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for offering us this opportunity to talk about the proposed tobacco-free policy.
Mr. Fadi, yes? Okay.
So we can come back.
Reading.
Okay.
We'll come back.
No, you're fine.
Yes, sir.
No, he's good.
Okay.
Could you spell his last name too, please?
Fadi, would you mind spelling your last name as well, please?
Jamous.
Thank you. And we are going to let you start over, and we apologize. Great job. I'm glad you're here. Fadi, welcome. Go right ahead, sir.
No, thank you. There's several of us here, and I'll just start. This is about the proposed tobacco-free policy, and thank you for letting us talk about this important life-saving measure, we all believe. As you know, in addition to the connection to cancer, tobacco use is a leading cause of heart disease and respiratory illness. We know exposure to secondhand smoke outdoors does cause respiratory irritation and may trigger asthma attacks. We know secondhand smoke is associated with heart attacks, stroke, lung cancer, emphysema, and in states and countries that have instituted bans, we know that heart attacks do drop in smokers and non-smokers. In smokers and non-smokers, even smokers benefit from secondhand exposure removal. I'm also very happy that this policy addresses all forms of tobacco, including the electronic devices. If you're around somebody who's using electronic devices, e-cigarettes, e-vaping, you are breathing nicotine. And we don't know today what that will cause, them or you. Not enough is known about their long-term effects, the e-vaping and the e-cigarette. It would be great if our patients or our friends, family members, and who are smokers, it would be great if they use the e-vape for a couple of months and then they're not e-vaping and not smoking cigarettes at all. But we haven't seen this to be a regular theme as of yet. It's important to create tobacco-free policy to promote a healthier community, protecting our residents, our visitors, from the harmful exposure of tobacco smoke. It's also very important to send a clear message to our children that they should not start tobacco. We have to be their role models. When I diagnose people with COPD, and their lung function, 20%, 30%, or when they come with lung cancer, and they were previous heavy smokers, they all invariably say, I wish I knew more, I wish I knew better. When we send a clear message, people can know more. Smokers are our friends, our family members, and our patients, and we owe it to them to be very clear. We owe it to them to help them quit. With the e-cigarettes, a lot of our young kids are picking up this habit. It may sound harmful, but there's a lot of evidence that that is a gateway. It's a gateway for them to end up smoking regular cigarettes. We're very concerned as healthcare providers about the effect of cigarettes, e-cigarettes. 1 in 3 tobacco smoker will end up having a health ailment secondary to that. Thank you very much for letting me speak. I urge you to consider to proceed with the ordinance. Thank you very much.
Doctor, thank you as well. Appreciate it. Folks, anybody else want to engage the council? Welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Councilors. Thank you for the opportunity to speak before you this evening. My name is Megan Myers. I'm the Government Relations Director for the American Heart Association here in South Dakota. We've got a number of speakers, I think, who want to speak this evening, so I'll keep my remarks very brief. The mission of the American Heart Association is to build healthier lives free of heart disease and stroke. Since using tobacco is one of the greatest preventable contributing factors to these chronic diseases, reducing the instance of tobacco use is one of our highest policy priorities. When we look at issues such as tobacco-free environments, the primary consideration really does need to be the health and well-being of our Sioux Falls residents and visitors to our city. Tobacco-free environments support those who want to quit, and they can keep youth from ever starting. That translates to healthier communities with lower rates of chronic disease. We would urge your favorable consideration of this ordinance, and I'm happy to stand by for any questions you may have. Thanks very much for your time.
Megan, thank you as well. Folks, anybody else want to welcome? And I would just let you know, the first two you got done in about a minute and a half. You actually get 5 minutes, but great job. Welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me tonight and allowing me the opportunity. My name is Carmen Agee. I'm here tonight representing the American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network. I'm also a Sioux Falls resident, and I'm a parent. I know there's a lot of supporters here tonight that aren't going to be speaking, but if we could just ask the folks here that are in support of the tobacco-free ordinance, just a quick show of hands. There's a lot of us here tonight, so we're thankful for everybody that's here. The American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network is committed to protecting the health and well-being of our community. We're encouraged by your consideration of this ordinance as it reads without exemption. South Dakota's made great progress in tobacco prevention through implementation of the statewide smoke-free law, increased tobacco taxes, and dedicated funding for tobacco prevention and cessation programs. Unfortunately, there's still much work to be done, as smoking remains the single largest cause of preventable death and disease. The Surgeon General has declared there is no safe level of exposure to secondhand smoke. Prohibiting tobacco use on all city-owned property is an important step that the Council should take to protect our residents and our guests from the harmful effects of secondhand smoke while they're enjoying our great city. A comprehensive policy free of exemption will be the easiest to educate the public about and will ensure successful compliance. These policies also change social norms and underscore that tobacco use is not a behavior that children should be exposed to or find acceptable. Places like the arena and the event center offer great children's activities, concerts, and programs. Our golf courses are places that families can go to be active and unwind. These facilities should not be exempt. Tobacco-free laws encourage tobacco users to quit or cut down and decrease youth initiation. There are many people here tonight who are watching this issue closely. Many of them see the impact of tobacco use in their daily life and their work, or because someone they know and care about has died or is suffering from disease because of tobacco use. They're hoping you'll do the right thing and make the health of our residents and our visitors a priority. We urge you to support this ordinance to prohibit the use of tobacco products, including e-cigarettes, on all city-owned property in Sioux Falls. Thank you.
Thank you, Carmen. Did anybody else want to engage the council on any topic? Welcome.
I'm Mike Keppen. I'm one of the cancer doctors at Sanford Cancer Center. Mayor Huther and council members, thank you for letting me have some of your time. As some of the previous speakers have talked about the known health risks of smoking and secondhand smoke, and I think the particular issue in this proposed legislation also affects a problem known as third-hand smoke. So studies have been done recently in children looking at what their contact can be with smokers and whether they absorb any of these toxic chemicals. So one of the studies that was done looked at a number of children whose caregivers said, I never smoke in the building. I always go outside. And when they checked the urine levels for cotinine, which is a breakdown product of nicotine, the levels were extremely high if one of their caregivers was a smoker. So either the caregivers were lying and they did sneak a cigarette inside the building where the children were taken care of, or the effects of what's known as third-hand smoke. So if you walk in a room where somebody has been smoking recently, the smoke does clear rather quickly. However, it doesn't go up into the stratosphere. Most of those harmful elements that are carcinogens, and they're of the 7,000 chemicals in cigarette smoke, about 800 are known to be carcinogenic. They settle on surfaces. So for people that are smoking outdoors, that means that there are carcinogens from this third-hand smoke that can settle on park benches, picnic tables, playground equipment if it was nearby, and the dirt. What park in the city doesn't have small children that are playing in the dirt? And so there's many different ways in which this toxic chemical can be absorbed by children. As far as secondhand smoke is concerned, we know that children of smokers have more ear infections. They miss more school because of respiratory infections. They have a much higher risk of developing asthma that can follow them for the rest of their lives. And the worry about cancer occurring later in the life of those children is something that is a concern. There's no proof, but there's certainly a lot of concern if these toxic chemicals are absorbed by children. As far as adults are concerned, there was a study done by two scientists at Stanford University. We like to say Stanford with a T, where I work. Looked at measuring cotinine levels and particulate hydrocarbons in people that were in outdoor restaurants where smoking was allowed. And they found that if somebody was within 6 to 8 feet of a smoker, that their serum levels and urine levels of some of these toxic chemicals were nearly as high as the smokers themselves. A third comment that I'd like to make is the difference between exhaled smoke and what's known as side stream smoke. So exhaled smoke is just what it sounds like after somebody has withdrawn these hot gases into their lungs. Side stream smoke is the continued smoke that's burning when the cigarette is sitting in an ashtray. And actually it's much more toxic because we haven't had the graciousness of the smoker to filter out many of those bad chemicals into their own lungs. So side stream smoke is really quite dangerous as well. And that's a big concern for adults who might be within several feet of somebody that's smoking, to get side stream smoke as well and have these chemicals in the body. If you've ever been around smokers, and you know, I think many of you remember when we grew up how common smoke was. It was ubiquitous. We've had a lot of these chemicals throughout our bodies. So for this ordinance to try to reduce the possibility of non-smokers who don't wish to have these toxic chemicals in their body, this is another very, very important step, and I certainly hope that you'll support this going forward. Thank you.
Dr. Kevin, thank you as well. Did anybody else want to engage the council? Welcome.
Greetings. I'm getting famous for this. It happens to be election day, and check it out, I'm wearing red, white, and blue, so good way to start. I've got two topics today, and the interesting thing about them is that I'm going to make completely dissimilar recommendations. On the one hand, I think we need more government influence, and on the other topic, I think we need less. And since they're both current events, I figured I'd try to squeeze them into one 5-minute presentation. Alcohol. Well, I should maybe let some of the doctors talk about this because I'm sure they're better informed than I am. But alcohol at low levels, it's not so harmful. Gets people to settle down a little bit, relax maybe. But in increasing quantities, it's increasingly dangerous. In moderate quantities, people get a little less inhibited, a little more reckless, a little more violent. In massive quantities, people die. So, but it's pretty popular stuff. I came across a study in the UK. They found it to be the most harmful drug. Now, isn't that ever a strong criticism? But people like it, so other people sell it to them. And if you're a greedy bar, maybe what you'll do is you'll have a lot of markup, a lot of sales, get a lot of people drunk, call police a lot, make a lot of money. If you're a responsible business, maybe you have a restaurant, sell less of the stuff, make less money. Doesn't look so good, but it's more responsible. There's some legal considerations when you get into this business. I tracked down 2 laws. I'm sure there are many more. One law says you better not sell alcoholic beverages to somebody who's already drunk. And there's laws against disorderly conduct. once in a while, a bar gets sued and lose all kinds of money. That doesn't happen much in South Dakota, and they made a law against it. But notice who I ascribed responsibility to. I figure everybody who's involved has their share of responsibility. Cities making laws, I figure there's some responsibility there. Bars sell the stuff, and people drink it. So everybody's got their share of the issue. We can note that police calls cost money, and people pay for that. I don't have an estimate yet. Is it $100 a call? Is it $500? Could it add up if you have one business making a couple hundred calls a year? And for each call, you know, maybe there's prosecution, jail time, adds up. It's a hidden subsidy for a small part of a local industry. We should be aware of this. So, you know, if a small part of the local industry has some problems, I think we should study that small part and then study a different parts of the same industry to try to compare these different business models and see if we can't make the road a little better safe, a little safer place, save some taxpayer money, reduce some crime. But mostly, we need a study, because I don't really know what's different between the businesses that don't have any trouble and the businesses that do. But I'm sure you could figure it out with a little bit of investigation. And that was part one, recommending more government influence. Part two, we're going to talk about mass incarceration. If you've read statistics, you know that we're number one in prisons, but that's not something we want to be number one in. Now, this is kind of related to the guts of today's topic, but not the core of it. There was a bank robbery in town, and 6 local schools got clamped down. I don't know why, because bank robbers don't hide out in schools. How does clamping down schools make the world a better place? I don't know. But you turn schools into prisons, and you get people used to mass incarceration on government whim. It's a great strategy if you want to develop bad things in government, excessive government power. Here's a few quotations that you should be familiar with. One comes out of the Constitution. Number 2 is on my T-shirt that I use in international travel. People who trade freedom for security have neither. And since I'm out of time, I'd like to bid everybody a good evening. And that's a view out my back window.
David, thank you.
You're welcome.
Folks, did anybody else want to engage the council? Welcome.
Sierra Broussard, Sioux Falls. I understand that we have this smoking issue here. So I'm not going to get too deeply involved in it. But we're going to sit here every day for the next 4 weeks on Wiley's. I have a private investigator digging into the assets of these police officers because Wiley's, let's make the record clear, got sued 6 times for excessive force. I have to see if these police officers are in a lawsuit. If they are, then we need to pull their badges away from them. Wiley's has been not only on this particular location, but they owned the vault. Cigarettes is bad for your health, but cigarettes versus alcohol and sexual assault that's fixing to take place within the city, which once more, we have to elevate this here. Wiley's downtown has been numerous of police calls and services. I have contacted sexual abuse advocates, and they said that Wiley's has been on the radar for them for the past few years. Sexual assault advocates in the city is saying that we have a problem, but nobody wants to listen to that. In 2 weeks, I'm going to have a prostitute that is a reformed prostitute coming over. That is reformed, getting $500 to $1,000 every 2 weeks on a city employee. There's 7 city employees paying for prostitutes that I'm dealing with on these streets, but nobody wants to hear that. But we're gonna make it be heard, and we're gonna make the names be known, and the light's gonna come out the tunnel of these city officials and these city employees that are participating in this. So we're gonna bring the evidence out after the Wiley's is out. But Mayor, you know as well as I know, you was there for the vault. That was not acceptable. What they're doing at Wiley's is not acceptable here. I don't know if you participated in this Wiley situation here, but we have them literally sitting on the floor, passed out, people fighting, and the cops don't want to deal with it, so they push them out of the bar, and they start fighting in the bar outside. And then cars are stopping and traffic stopping. Do we need this kind of stuff in Sioux Falls? Pat, Greg, and Teresa is the only ones that got involved in this situation here. And I'm not saying Wiley's is the first one, because they're all going to the PAVE, and the PAVE is having numerous of calls there too. But I took up and stood up to Augustana College last year when Augustana College was being discriminated against Wiley's. And Michelle decided that this was an embarrassment because Mr. Ducan, the attorney, is one of her best friends. You can't put friendship and politics aside here. We have to do what's right for Wiley's, and let's crack down on this drinking. And next year, if this continues, let's pull that liquor license away from Wiley's. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sierra. Welcome, Scott.
Scott Harrisman, Sioux Falls. I saw in the news, I think there was a press conference, and then KDLT did a story about Councilor Ralphing and the mayor talking about the importance of voting. And I thought it was great. Yeah, the number one ranking Democrat in the state is out encouraging people to vote, and I think that's wonderful. And I also believe that the First Amendment is one of the most powerful tools in our country and represents our freedoms, that we have a right to vote and to speak out in this country. But with the First Amendment comes, the famous last words: you have a right to your opinion, you don't have a right to your own facts. So I was, past May, the mayor was at a listening and learning session that was replayed on CityLink and on their YouTube channel, and he told the students that the event center election was record-breaking. He went on to say this yesterday on KDLT. Mayor Mike Heather says that one major facility in Sioux Falls is a perfect example of what voting can accomplish. We had over 40,000 people vote on the event center. Mayor Heather said over 40% voter turnout, and it ended up being the largest voter turnout in the city of Sioux Falls. It was a large voter turnout, and that's partially true. For a special election, it probably was the largest voter turnout. But as you can see from up here, these figures come from the Secretary of State total vote system and the City of Sioux Falls 2011 election data, that there's been several elections that have beat the event center vote. And one of the other things to say is that it was an advisory vote. All it meant was you said, I'm in favor of this. It got passed on to the City Council. The City Council approved the bonds. If the City Council wouldn't have approved the bonds, there was no legal recourse for the voters unless they did a petition drive similar to what the city administration building. I guess what I'm trying to say here, it's great that you're encouraging people to vote, but why don't we do it a little honestly there, so you can see the numbers that in 2012 was the record-breaking year. That's all I have on that. Let's talk about Wiley's a little bit. 4 years ago, November 20th of 2012, the vault was up here, and there was concerns about their liquor license. They had 154 police calls in 12-month period, and Wiley's is now up to about 182 in a 10-month period. I watched this meeting the other night. It was a 4-hour meeting. The discussion on the vault lasted about 35 minutes, and then there was a deferral to another meeting, and there was another about 30 minutes before the City Council voted 7-1 to renew the license. Rex Rolfing was the dissenting vote on that, and I believe Michelle was on the council at the time, and you were the mayor. Nobody else was up that's on the dais was on the council at that time. Councilor Jameson said during the meeting, these kind of reviews of the establishments was important to establish a public record of concerns. As the meeting went on, there was another license for a C-store called Mercado, and the attorney for Mercado got chastised by the mayor. The mayor said this in the meeting 4 years ago. It is the duty of the city council to review all liquor licenses that are up for renewal. If they want to complete some additional due diligence on any of these, whether it be the Vault, whether it be Mercado, or any of the other establishments that serve alcohol in this town, they have the ability to do that. In this case, they wanted to ask some questions or do some additional due diligence on the Mercado before they make a decision on that. So before you start to accuse a counselor or someone else for doing something that is appropriate or not, I would encourage you to use caution. And the attorney interrupted, and then the mayor went on to say, I would encourage you to tone it down a bit. The council has a right to ask questions. So we had a council meeting about Wiley's, and some reason people were embarrassed and ashamed and that we brought this up. The mayor said it 4 years ago. The council has the right to do that. The council has a right to review these licenses. And as I told people who were upset about it, I said, they have to vote on this. This is important. It's on their record to vote for or against the liquor license. Ironically, the Vault closed a year later, and the owner of the Vault is now part owner of Wiley's. I don't know if he brought all his problems from over there over to Wiley's, but that's the case. As David, yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Good job. Welcome.
Tim Stanga. I also was here last week. When you have city councilors that aren't afraid to ask the hard questions, to be able to realize that the citizens pay for every time a police officer goes to a call, I think they should have a right to ask questions and try to figure out what we can do to try to hold down the calls. But when you come out again and chastise people over TV because they want to ask questions, that's where this city is sad. People, whoever chastised the ones that were, shouldn't apologize to the city council that did get chastised. Number two, the smoking situation in Sioux Falls. I'm not against smokers, I'm not for smokers. But the thing is, I think what we have to do is we have to start in our own yard. All city employees should not be allowed to smoke on any property that the city owns. Drive by the interstate, guy's out there watering trees and he's out there smoking. That's a city park. He works for the city. Why is he smoking while he's on a job? I don't know. All city vehicles should be smoke-free. All city garages should be smoke-free. Let's start in our own backyard, and let's go through our own backyard before we start worrying about the public. Another thing, I'm going to bring up the drinking. Drinking kills more people, I would almost think, than smoking does. And we're going after the smokers. It's amazing that we can't pick on, we try picking on this person, but yet we got to go after this person. Now we're going to go after the smokers. Where do we stop? We make big money out at the event center on drinking. I've talked to several people that have been to the event center, and there's people that are standing in back of them so drunk that they can't even enjoy what they spent $100 a ticket on. Now I think we got to realize that if we're going to sell booze, we got to realize that if a person's intoxicated, we either escort them out or we don't sell them any more booze. Because if we have to stop selling booze at the event center, we'd be in trouble. But I do believe that we can find a place for people to smoke outside. We do it at all the bars now. People haven't had problems with it. It's worked. And I don't have no problem with the way it is now.
Thank you, Tim. Appreciate that. Folks, did anybody else want to engage the council?
You ever seen they have one of those days where it just seems like everybody's getting on your case?
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Very good dialogue.
Y'all come back now. Cheers.
Security, escort this gentleman out, please.
Come on, Soda Pop, let's go.